Her husband had no idea the transfer papers his old flame handed him were actually their divorce agreement. She went to all this trouble because his family had one bizarre rule. Marriage could end in widowhood, but never divorce. So Shen Nianqing made a deal with his old flame, Jiang Yue. Get Lu Tingchen to sign the divorce papers, and Nianqing would give up her place as Mrs. Lu. Jiang Yue pulled it off easily. The very next day, she smugly handed Nianqing the signed papers. See? If I hand Tingchen something, he'll sign it without even reading it. Shen Nianqing stared at the bold signature, Lu Tingchen. After a long pause, she smiled softly. Pleasure doing business. Once she had the divorce papers, Nianqing lived as usual, but little things quietly began to change. She stopped waking up early to make Tingchen breakfast. Only the servant's cooking remained on the table. When he worked late, she stopped waiting up for him. The bedroom light went out early, and she no longer ironed his clothes by hand. She stopped carefully preparing his suits for each new season, too. Even when he came home late, she'd only answer quietly, then turn and leave. At first, Tingchen noticed nothing. Then one day, the hot tea in his study was gone. No matter how late it was, Nianqing used to leave a perfectly warm cup of tea on his desk. He frowned, strangely irritated for no clear reason. At dinner that night, he put down his chopsticks and looked at her. What's gotten into you lately? Nianqing looked up. Her expression stayed calm. What do you mean? You've been acting strange. She lowered her eyes and kept eating. Really, I don't think so. Lu Tingchen narrowed his eyes, his voice turning colder. Shen Nianqing. Be sensible. You already got the title of Mrs. Lu. Know your place and don't get ideas. Her hand paused slightly around her chopsticks. Then she curved her lips. Okay. I understand. Her obedience only irritated him more, though he couldn't explain why. Life drifted along like that until the Lu family's banquet. Nianqing stood beside Tingchen in an elegant gown, perfectly playing the role of Mrs. Lu. Guests mingled over drinks, praising them as the perfect couple. Tingchen wore a faint smile but never touched her. Nianqing was used to it, keeping her own smile perfectly in place. Then a stir arose at the entrance. Jiang Yue walked in wearing white, bright and beautiful. Tingchen's eyes went straight to her, softening at once. He let go of Nianqing and strode toward Yue. Mrs. Lu's expression changed instantly. She hissed under her breath. Who invited her? Nianqing stood where she was and watched Tingchen casually put an arm around Yue's shoulders. His mother had her answer. Yue just came back from abroad. I brought her to see some old friends. His mother trembled with anger, but with guests around, she could only glare at him and storm away. Nianqing watched the two walk into the crowd side by side as guests whispered and glanced between her and Yue. Her smile slowly faded. Years of trying to please him flashed through her mind, and all she'd gotten back was, know your place. Yet Jiang Yue only had to appear, and suddenly he could see no one else. Nianqing sighed and walked to the poolside lounge. The water shimmered beneath the lights, reflecting the stars as the evening breeze brushed her face. Nianqing, you're out here all alone? She turned and saw Jiang Yue approaching, lifting her skirt with a concerned smile. Yue stopped beside her. Then she lowered her voice. There was a smug edge to it. Nianqing, don't worry. Once the divorce waiting period ends, I'll take good care of Tingchen. You've worked hard all these years. You won't have to force yourself anymore. Her eyes swept over Nianqing's face, a faint, knowing smile on her lips. Actually, I should thank you for giving up your place so easily. Nianqing saw the open triumph in her eyes and almost found it funny. She couldn't wait to get rid of that place. Before she could answer, two children came racing toward them, laughing and chasing each other. Before Nianqing could react, someone slammed into her back. She and Yue both lost their balance and fell into the pool. Someone fell in! Help them! People shouted in panic. Tingchen rushed over, saw both women struggling, and without hesitation threw off his jacket, jumped in, and swam straight toward Jiang Yue. Nianqing fought desperately. She'd feared water since childhood and couldn't swim. Cold water filled her nose and mouth. As panic closed in, she saw Tingchen carry Yue toward shore without looking back once. Nianqing slowly sank as the noise faded away. Then she stopped fighting. Of course, she should have known. She would never be his first choice. Nianqing closed her eyes with a relieved smile. Fine. After this, she and Lu Tingchen would owe each other nothing. As her mind faded, she thought, in my next life, I never want to meet Lu Tingchen again. When she woke again, harsh white light filled her vision, and antiseptic stung her nose. Nianqing blinked until her thoughts cleared. She was alive. The quiet hospital room was dim behind drawn curtains. She turned her head and saw Lu Tingchen sitting beside the bed, one hand at his forehead, brows tightly furrowed. Nianqing froze. In 5 years of marriage, she'd been sick, feverish, even hospitalized for appendicitis, and he'd never once sat by her bed. Usually, only the cold ceiling and the drip of an IV kept her company. She stared at him for a long time. Long enough for him to notice. You're awake? Nianqing looked away, her voice slightly hoarse. Why are you here? He didn't answer. Instead, he stood and walked to the bed. His eyes dropped to her stomach. His expression was complicated. What are you looking at? Tingchen was silent for a moment, choosing his words. The doctor says you're pregnant. 3 months. Nian Qing's eyes widened. Her hand flew to her stomach, trembling. 3 months pregnant, and she'd had no idea. She thought stress had made her period irregular, and that her poor appetite and nausea were nothing. But there was already a tiny life inside her. You really didn't notice before? She shook her head, eyes reddening. Panic hit hard. All she could think about was the signed divorce agreement and the escape she'd planned. Now everything had changed. Tingchen stood there, dazed. He hadn't been ready to become a father either. The news had blindsided everyone. The doctor had said Nian Qing was underwater so long they nearly lost the baby. For the first time, something unfamiliar stirred inside him. Looking at Nian Qing, he remembered choosing Yue first and leaving his wife in the pool. If someone else hadn't jumped in, Nian Qing and the baby might both be gone. Guilt, something he'd never felt toward her before, washed over him. Take good care of this baby. Nian Qing met his eyes. They looked different now, less cold, filled with something she couldn't understand. I'll have people look after you. Just focus on the pregnancy. Nian Qing said nothing, only watched him. Tingchen paused as if making a decision. Everything the Lu family owns will go to this child someday. Nian Qing froze, hardly believing what she'd heard. She asked what he meant. Tingchen only said the child was innocent. Whatever happens between us, this child is still a Lu. And I owe you. I'll make it up to you from now on. He sounded completely serious. There was a solemn weight in his voice she'd never heard before. Lu Tingchen sat beside the bed. For once his voice softened. These 5 years. I haven't cared enough. I'll change. Let's make this marriage work and have the baby. Nian Qing stared at him, speechless. She'd waited 5 years to hear, let's make this marriage work, dreamed of it day and night. But now, there was only emptiness. Too late. Everything was too late. She remembered him diving in for Yue without hesitation while she struggled alone. He never looked back. Her heart had died in that pool. Now he wanted to make it work only because she was pregnant. Without this baby, would he say any of this? She lowered her eyes with a bitter smile. That smile held weariness, exhaustion, and even a trace of disgust she hadn't realized was there. Tingchen caught it and frowned. It wasn't joy, gratitude, or even indifference. It was annoyance. His wife was tired of hearing him talk. The realization left a strange pressure in his chest. He'd never seen that look on Nian Qing's face. For 5 years she'd been gentle, quiet, never complaining or arguing. He'd assumed she'd always wait for him. But that flash of annoyance made him realize something might have changed. What are you thinking about? Nian Qing snapped back to reality and quickly hid her expression. Nothing, she said. I'm just a little tired. Tingchen studied her without pressing further, but unease crept in. He felt she was planning something outside his control, as if she might disappear at any moment. Get some rest. I'll have someone stay with you. Nian Qing froze. She looked up at him. Why do I need someone watching me? You just had an accident. You haven't recovered yet. I'm worried about you. He said it as if it were obvious. But Nian Qing saw a hint of suspicion in his eyes. Her heart sank. He'd noticed something in her expression. Without showing it, she nodded. Okay. 3 days later, Nian Qing returned to the Lu home. Tingchen left early for an important meeting, but before leaving, he ordered the servants to stay beside her at all times. Wherever Nian Qing went, someone followed. She tried to step outside for some air. The servant said, Mr. Lu gave strict orders. You need bed rest, ma'am. You can't go out. When she tried sitting in the garden, a servant carried a chair right behind her. Nian Qing knew this wasn't care. It was surveillance. Tingchen really was suspicious. Nian Qing sat on the sofa holding warm milk. The servant said Tingchen had ordered it especially for the pregnancy. She stared into the glass with a bitter smile. The doorbell rang. Moments later, hurried footsteps approached. Jiang Yue stormed in wearing an expensive dress, eyes red as if she'd been crying, but blazing with anger. Shen Nian Qing, you're really something. Nian Qing calmly set down her milk and asked what Miss Jiang wanted. Yue gave a cold laugh and sat across from her. Crossing her legs, she snapped, Drop the innocent act. You think a baby can make Tingchen stay? Nian Qing said nothing, simply watching her. That calm expression only made Yue angrier. Her voice sharpened. Let me tell you something. Tingchen only loves me. His parents forced you on him. He never loved you. Did you get pregnant because you still can't let him go and want to trap him with a baby? Nian Qing calmly watched her lose her temper. Her gaze was cool. The divorce papers are already signed. You tell me whether I've let go. Yue froze. She hadn't expected such a blunt answer, and suddenly all the speeches she'd prepared had nowhere to go. Then what are you going to do about the baby? As she spoke, Yue's expression suddenly changed, as if a thought had hit her. You're not planning to use the baby as an excuse to stay, are you? Nian Qing remained perfectly calm. Lu Tingchen has people watching me constantly, she said. I can't get out. If you want me gone, find a way to get him away from the house. Yue narrowed her eyes, surprised Nian Qing would ask for that herself. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. Fine, I'll find a way. She stood, reached the doorway, then stopped and looked back. You endured it all these years. Why are you so determined to leave now? Nian King stayed silent. Yue waited, then turned to go. Just as she was about to step outside, Nian King finally spoke softly. Because I'm unhappy. We only get about 30,000 days in a lifetime, and I've already wasted too many. From now on, I want my own life. I'm done exhausting myself trying to please a man who doesn't love me. Yue paused and looked back. Sunlight fell across Nian King on the sofa. She looked utterly calm, as if talking about someone else's life. For the first time, Yue found her almost unfamiliar. Without another word, she left the Liu house. For the next few days, Nian King behaved perfectly. She ate, rested, and followed every instruction. Tingchen came and went, occasionally checking on her. She always thanked him politely. Slowly, his guard dropped. Nian King had always been obedient. What could she possibly be planning? Late one night, Tingchen came home exhausted after days of overtime. He was about to open Nian Qing's door when his phone rang. The caller was Zhang Yue. He answered and heard her sobbing. Tingchen, my ex is harassing me again. He's pounding on the door. I'm scared. A loud crash came through the phone, then the call cut off. Tingchen's face changed. Forgetting Nian King, he grabbed security and rushed to Yue's apartment. The moment he left, Nian King slipped out the back door in a coat. A waiting cab carried her into the night. When Tingchen reached the apartment, the hallway was empty. He rushed inside and found Yue trembling in a corner. The second she saw him, she threw herself into his arms. Tingchen, you're finally here. I was so scared. He gently patted her back, his voice soft. It's okay now. He's gone. I'm here. Yue clung to his waist, crying pitifully. After comforting her for a long time, Tingchen checked the hour. It was after midnight. He suddenly thought of pregnant Nian Qing, and for some reason panic hit him. He settled Yue in bed and stood to leave. Get some rest. I'm going back to check on Nian King. Yue grabbed his hand. Her eyes filled with tears again. Tingchen, he could come back any time. I'm terrified. Can you stay with me tonight? He hesitated, but she kept pleading and crying. In the end, he sent his guards back to watch Nian King and called her himself. Yue's ex came after her again. For safety, I'm staying here with her tonight. I won't be home. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Nian King answered in the same calm, gentle voice that never complained. No rush. Take good care of Miss Jiang. Tingchen froze. Before he could say more, she hung up. That unease returned as he stared at the dark screen, but Yue called for him again, so he turned back to comfort her. At that very moment, Nian King lay on an operating table beneath blinding surgical lights. She handed her phone to a nurse and touched her stomach one last time. 3 months, and she'd never even felt the baby move. Tears silently slipped into her hair. Baby, I'm sorry. I wasn't a good mother. I hope in your next life you're born into a family that loves you more, with parents who love each other and can't wait for you to arrive. I can't bring you into a life where you aren't truly wanted. She lowered her hand and closed her eyes, her voice quiet but firm. As the anesthesia took effect, her thoughts blurred. She believed she owed this child something, and in another life, she would repay it. A full week passed before Tingchen returned home. He'd stayed with Yue all 7 days. He called Nian King a few times, but she always sounded calm and gentle, saying everything was fine, so he never thought much of it. As soon as he got out of the car, he saw Nian King resting on a garden chair under a blanket. Early autumn sunlight gave her a soft golden glow. She looked thinner and paler than a week ago. Tingchen walked over and handed her a jewelry box. I've neglected you these past few days. This is for you. Nian King opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant necklace from a designer she once loved. But she'd seen this exact design on Yue's social media yesterday, where Yue showed off the limited edition original. The necklace in Nian Qing's hands was merely the free gift that came with the real piece. She lowered her eyes with a faint, bitter smile, said nothing, and quietly set the box aside. She simply said, "Thank you." Her reaction bothered Tingchen. In the past, her eyes would light up whenever he gave her something. She never said much, but he could feel her happiness. Now there was nothing in her eyes, only stillness. Instead of leaving, he sat beside her. Next weekend is our 5th wedding anniversary. Nian King looked up, surprised. For once, Tingchen looked slightly uncomfortable and glanced away. We married in such a rush that we never had a wedding. Let's finally have one for the baby's sake. Nian King said nothing. Tingchen took her silence as agreement and stood, his voice unusually gentle. I've already flown in a designer from France to make your wedding dress. Focus on recovering. I'll handle everything else. He walked away. Nian King watched him go with mixed emotions. Next weekend was also the day the divorce waiting period ended. The irony was almost perfect. The house became busy. Servants decorated, shopped, and prepared. The French designer measured Nian King, chose fabrics, and discussed styles. She cooperated with everything, never objecting once. everyone relaxed. Only Nian King knew she would never appear at this wedding. 3 days before the wedding, while everyone was busy, Yue slipped into the dressing room. Nian Qing stood before a pure white wedding gown covered in lace and delicate embroidery. It looked like a dream. Jealousy flashed through Yue's eyes before she hid it. She asked, "Why did you call me here?" Nian King turned and handed her a tablet. "We're about the same size. The dress was made to my measurements. Try it on now, mark anything that needs changing on the tablet, and I'll have the designer adjust it." Yue froze. She stared at her. "Isn't this your wedding? Why am I trying on the dress?" Nian King looked at her. Her gaze was calm. "The day Lu Tingchen holds this wedding is the day the divorce waiting period ends. I'll finalize the divorce and leave. A wedding needs a bride, so you're the perfect choice." Yue stared at her, speechless. Nian King continued, her voice quiet but clear. "You're the only woman he ever wanted to marry anyway. I hope you both get exactly what you wanted." There was no sadness or reluctance in Nian King's eyes. She spoke as if none of this had anything to do with her. Only then did Yue finally believe it. Nian Qing truly didn't love Lu Tingchen anymore. She had killed that love herself. 2 days before the wedding, Nian King was in the bathroom while Tingchen worked on the sofa. A message alert broke the silence. He glanced at her phone and saw a flight booking confirmation. Just as he reached for it, Nian Qing came out, drying her hair. He frowned. "The wedding is almost here. Why did you buy a plane ticket?" Her hands paused for a second, then her expression returned to normal. "What plane ticket? You must have misread it. Probably spam." He nodded and let it go. That night they lay back to back. One fell asleep quickly, the other stayed awake until morning. The day before the wedding, Nian King opened the diary she'd kept since their wedding night. After turning page after page, she wrote one final entry. September 3, 2024. "I've decided to leave. Lu Tingchen, I don't want you anymore." She placed the diary, the abortion record, and the divorce agreement in the bedside drawer. Then she looked around the festive room one last time and smiled. There was no regret in her eyes, only longing for freedom. When the clock chimed, Shen Nianqing disappeared into the night. On the wedding day, the hall was dressed in flowers and white fabric. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting colorful light across the romantic scene. Lu Tingchen waited at the end of the aisle. It was only supposed to be a belated ceremony, yet standing there he felt unexpectedly excited. He'd never seen Nian King in a wedding dress. Imagining her walking toward him in white made his heart beat faster as the bride approached beneath a soft veil. The bride walked toward him. "Miss Shen Nianqing, do you take Mr. Lu as your husband, in sickness and in health for richer or poorer, to love, care for, respect, and remain faithful to him for as long as you both shall live?" The bride nodded shyly. "I do." "Mr. Lu Tingchen, do you take Miss Shen as your wife, in sickness and in health for richer or poorer, to love, care for, respect, and remain faithful to her for as long as you both shall live?" He nodded. "I do." Applause filled the room as the officiant pronounced them married. Tingchen smiled, but when he reached to lift the veil for a kiss, the bride clutched it tightly and wouldn't let go. Thinking she was shy, he leaned down first. He coaxed softly, "Nian King, don't be scared." After a long hesitation, the bride finally released the veil. He slowly lifted it. The instant he saw her face, his eyes widened. "What are you doing here?"
Yue?
Tingchen stared at her in disbelief. Then he quickly forced himself to regain control. The smile vanished from his face. He dropped the veil back down at once. Then he turned apologetically to the guests. "Sorry, the bride is a little shy." The guests exchanged knowing looks and stopped teasing. The reception began, but the newlyweds never came down to toast anyone. Tingchen's parents waited until the banquet was nearly over, then finally lost patience. Mrs. Lu turned to a servant and gave an order. "Go upstairs and tell Mr. and Mrs. Lu to hurry." The servant nodded, went upstairs, and knocked on the lounge door. "Sir, ma'am, Mr. and Mrs. Lu asked you to change and come downstairs as soon as possible." The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Finally, a man's voice answered, "Got it." "You can go downstairs." Once the servant left, Tingchen frowned at the woman in front of him. "Why are you here?" Yue's eyes turned red. "Why can't it be me?" "Tingchen, are you really holding this wedding with Shen Nianqing? If things hadn't gone wrong back then, I would have been the one marrying you. I'm only taking back what was supposed to be mine." For the first time, Tingchen had no patience to comfort the crying Yue. "This isn't the time. This wedding is different. It's the first time I've publicly announced my marriage. Nianqing and I are already all over the news. Everyone knows she's the bride. If the bride suddenly changes, the fallout will be huge. I'm saying this for your sake." Yue didn't want to hear any of it. "Lu Tingchen, if you really love me, announce right now that I'm the bride instead. Otherwise, I'm leaving." She stood to go, but Tingchen blocked the doorway. "You can't go out yet. What do you mean? If anyone sees you now, it'll create a mess." "Yue, stay here until the guests leave." He shut the door and left without another glance. Yue stood alone, fists slowly tightening. Downstairs, Mrs. Lu looked confused when Tingchen returned by himself. "Why are you alone? Where's Nian King?" Tingchen quickly hid his irritation. Mom, you know Nianqing nearly drowned and she's pregnant. She's still weak, so I told her to rest upstairs. Only then did Mrs. Lu relax. Then go toast the guests first. Tingchen nodded and picked up a wine glass. Just as he headed toward the banquet, a hurt, tearful voice called out behind him. Zhang Yue called out, "Tingchen!" The guests all looked up, including Mr. and Mrs. Lu. Zhang Yue stood at the top of the stairs in a white wedding dress. She looked at Lu Tingchen with tears in her eyes. Mrs. Lu's face immediately darkened. Just as she was about to have security remove her, Yue rushed downstairs, threw herself into Tingchen's arms, and cried, "Tingchen! I'm the one you married today. Why wouldn't you let me come down and greet the guests?" Those 2 sentences were enough. The guests instantly understood what was going on and began whispering. Lu Tingchen could no longer keep his expression calm. "Yue, this isn't the time for a scene." Yue ignored him and kept explaining loudly. "I know you don't love Shen Nianqing, otherwise why would you have left her and gone abroad for me so many times? You helped with my divorce, picked me up at the airport, and even let me stay at your villa. If you didn't love me, why would you care so much?" She tugged at her wedding dress. "Look, even this dress is my size, so you do love me, right?" Mrs. Lu cursed her as an idiot inside, but kept smiling for the guests. She signaled to the butler. The butler stepped forward. "Our apologies. That young lady isn't feeling quite herself. She's having a confused episode, please excuse her." He then politely showed the guests out. The guests knew it was a family matter, so they left one by one, still buzzing with gossip. Once the last guest was gone, Mrs. Lu finally dropped her smile. She slapped Yue. "You shameless woman!" Tingchen knew Yue was wrong, but seeing the woman he loved struck by his mother still hurt him. He stepped in front of her as Yue covered her swollen cheek. Tears streamed down her face. "Tingchen, I know what I did was wrong. I just love you so much, that's why I—" Before she could finish, she lowered her head and started sobbing again. The sight made Tingchen feel even more sorry for her. He pulled her into his arms. "It's okay. I'm not blaming you." Mrs. Lu fought the urge to roll her eyes. She said coldly, "I don't care what you were thinking. But of all the things you could have done, you had no right to ruin someone else's wedding." Yue went pale. She peeked out from Tingchen's arms. Through tears, she said, "Auntie. Don't call me Auntie." While Tingchen was comforting Yue, the butler showed Mrs. Lu a phone screen. The moment she saw the headline, she yanked Yue out of Tingchen's arms and slapped her again. "Zhang Yue, you shameless liar. When you took my money and went abroad, you promised you'd never come back. Less than 5 years later, you came back and went after my son again. After everything you've done, are you determined to wreck this family?" Tingchen caught the key phrase in his mother's words. He stared at Yue in shock. "What money did you take from my mom?" Yue immediately denied it. "Tingchen, I never took any money." Mrs. Lu ignored her and shoved the phone toward him. "Look at what this woman did." After reading the headline, Tingchen looked up at her in disbelief. "Yue? What is this?" Several trending posts suddenly appeared online about the Lu family's bride being switched. Other than Yue, Mrs. Lu couldn't imagine who else would do it. Yue looked guilty. Before coming downstairs, she'd feared Tingchen would deny marrying her. So she'd tipped off gossip reporters and paid to push the story online. She thought the Lu family would have to recognize her as the bride to save face. Reality went very differently. Tingchen looked at her again. For the first time, she felt like a stranger. Yue grabbed his hand in panic. Her eyes were full of fear. "Tingchen, listen to me. I didn't want to do this. I just love you so much, so I—" Mrs. Lu flexed her aching hand. She sat back down. "If you really loved my son, why did you come to me for money and leave the country back then?" Tingchen snapped his head toward his mother. "Mom? What do you mean?" Mrs. Lu didn't answer. She simply beckoned to the butler. He immediately handed her a yellow document. Mrs. Lu threw it at Yue's feet. "Read it yourself." Yue froze. She recognized the document. It was the promise she'd written herself years ago. She voluntarily accepted 5 million yuan to leave Lu Tingchen forever, complete with her signature and fingerprint. Tingchen bent down and picked it up. His fingers trembled. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. He closed his eyes. His voice was hoarse. "Yue, tell me this is fake." Yue crawled forward on her knees and clung to his leg. "Tingchen, let me explain. Your mother threatened me. She said if I didn't leave, she'd make my whole family suffer. I had no choice but to sign it. I never wanted to leave you." Tingchen looked down at her. A final trace of trust remained in his eyes. "Mom, did you really threaten her?" Mrs. Lu laughed in disbelief. "Threaten her? Fine. Then ask her who called the Lu family first and asked to meet me alone. Ask who said over the phone that if the price was right, she'd walk away willingly. I recorded that call. Want to hear it?" Yue's face instantly drained of color. Tingchen looked at her. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Yue. Is it true?" Yue shook her head wildly. Tears covered her face. "No, I didn't, Tingchen." "You have to believe me," Mrs. Lu spoke coldly. "Then let's play it for everyone." She told the butler to play the recording. In the quiet living room, the recorded conversation rang out clearly. "Auntie, I know I'm not good enough for Tingchen, but I truly love him. I can't leave him, but if you could give me some money to study abroad, I might consider it. How much do you want?" 5 million? I want 5 million yuan. I won't leave for a cent less. The voice on the recording was unmistakably Yue's. Tingchen's pupils tightened. He stared at the woman kneeling on the floor. You said you were forced. Were you forced to say that too? Yue completely panicked. She got up and reached for his hand. Tingchen, I was too young back then. I didn't know better. I know I was wrong now. I've thought about you every day all these years. I came back for you. Mrs. Lu sneered. For him? The first thing you did after coming back was investigate the Lu family's assets. You think I don't know how many boyfriends you went through overseas? Every one of them came from money. You got bored and moved to the next. Then things stopped working out abroad, so you remembered my son. Your backup plan. Yue flushed red, then pale, but couldn't say a word in defense. Tingchen covered his face and laughed bitterly. There was nothing but pain in that laugh. He'd suffered for so long after Yue left and invented excuse after excuse for her. He thought his family had forced her away. He thought she'd had no choice. But the truth was she'd taken the money herself and left without looking back. The innocent love of his youth shattered completely in that moment. The perfect first love he'd treasured in his memory had only existed in his own imagination. Seeing him silent, Yue hurried forward on her knees. Tingchen, I know I was wrong, but what we had was real. Back then I felt so inferior. I thought I wasn't good enough for you. Instead of watching you marry someone from your world, I thought it was better to take the money and walk away. She cried pitifully. I've regretted it every day all these years. I've regretted that decision ever since. Tingchen, please give me one more chance. Tingchen walked over and slowly crouched in front of her. He gently wiped the tears from her face. Hope lit up in Yue's eyes. She thought he'd softened, but then his voice turned colder than she'd ever heard. He said, Yue, do you know something? Back then, I truly imagined a future with you. Even if the whole world stood against us, I would have walked away from everything and taken you with me. But you wouldn't even give me a chance. To explain, he stood up. Looking down at her, he said, 5 million! So in your heart, everything between us was worth 5 million yuan. Yue shook her head wildly. No! Tingchen, I love you. I really love you. Tingchen looked like he'd heard a joke. Love me? If you really loved me, you wouldn't have taken that money back then. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have schemed at every turn after coming back. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have bought trending posts today to pressure me into marrying you. He spoke slowly, every word deliberate. Each word cut into Yue. From beginning to end, you only loved the Lu family's money and status. I was nothing more than a tool to get what you wanted. Yue completely broke down. She lunged toward him, trying to hug him. No! Tingchen, let me explain. Tingchen coldly stepped away. There was no warmth left in his eyes. Zhang Yue, we're done. With that, he turned and walked toward the door. Fear slowly filled Yue's eyes. Her desperate cries echoed through the villa. Lu Tingchen, you can't do this to me. I've given up so much for you. You can't just throw me away. Lu Tingchen, come back, but he disappeared into the night without looking back. Yue was left collapsed alone on the cold floor. Her makeup was ruined. She was a complete mess. Mrs. Lu stood up. She looked down at Yue. Ms. Zhang, I'll say this one last time. Stay away from my son from now on. Otherwise, you'll find out what it really means to have nowhere left to turn, to get the scandal out of the headlines, and calm the shareholders. For the next week, Tingchen practically lived at the office, but on the wedding night, he'd gone straight back to the villa. The moment he opened the door, the whole house was dark. He called Nianking's name several times. No one answered. He hurried upstairs and opened the bedroom door. The bed was perfectly made. No one was there. He searched the study, the garden, and the entire villa. Shen Yanqing was gone. He stopped a maid. Did my wife come back? The maid lowered her head. Sir, Madam hasn't come home at all today. Tingchen frowned. She hadn't come back? Then she had to still be at the wedding venue. He immediately called the wedding staff. They hesitated before saying Mrs. Lu had disappeared halfway through the wedding. Everything had been too chaotic. No one noticed when she left. Tingchen's heart sank. So the divorce agreement really had worked. He'd wanted to expose Yue's true face and see Nianqing's real reaction. For 5 years, she'd always been gentle and obedient, never arguing or making scenes. He couldn't tell whether she truly loved him or was only doing her duty as a wife, so when Yue brought out the agreement, he secretly switched it. Then he signed it, wanting to see what Nianqing would do, if she believed he really wanted a divorce. Would she cry, make a scene? Would she beg him? Instead, she did nothing. She only looked at him calmly, then turned and left. He thought she'd go home and wait for him, wait for his explanation. Instead, she simply vanished. He was about to send people to find her. When his phone rang first, it was an emergency call from the company. The stock price was crashing. The board called an emergency meeting. Major shareholders were putting on pressure. Overseas partners seized the opportunity too, threatening to end their contracts. He had no choice but to rush back to work. Before leaving, he told the butler to check the cameras and find his wife's trail. Then he hurried away. The next day, the butler called after checking the wedding footage. Yanqing had slipped out alone through a side door, then taken a taxi. No one knew where she'd gone. Tingchen was in a board meeting, so he could only tell them to keep searching. He assumed she was hiding somewhere, angry. Once she cooled off, she'd come back. After all, she'd always been sensible. She had never truly fought with him before. But one company crisis followed another. By day, he faced nonstop pressure from the board. At night, he held video calls with overseas partners. Tingchen worked 7 straight days with almost no sleep. Under the dim office lights, his bloodshot eyes stayed fixed on the screen. The coffee beside him had gone cold. He drank it in one gulp. The butler called several more times. They still hadn't found her. Tingchen was irritated, but he still didn't take it seriously enough. He figured he'd find her himself once work settled down and explain the divorce agreement properly. 3 more days passed. Tingchen finally secured the last major partner. The stock price began to stabilize. Exhausted, he sank into his chair and closed his eyes. Nian Qing's face suddenly crossed his mind. A week. Where had she gone? Just then, his phone rang. It was his mother, Tingchen. Put the headlines and the company aside for now. Your father can handle the rest. You need to find Nian Qing. She's out there alone and she's pregnant. Your grandfather hasn't stopped asking about her. Tingchen's heart dropped. Mom? The butler's been searching this whole time. Still nothing? His mother went silent for a moment. The butler says they've searched for a week and still can't find Nian Qing. Her phone has been off the whole time. Tingchen, you need to come back and look yourself. Tingchen hung up and immediately called Nian Qing. The call rang once, then disconnected. He tried again, same thing. He called 7 or 8 times. Every call dropped after one ring. He tried from another number. This time it connected, but rang for a long time with no answer. Staring at the screen, Tingchen finally understood. She'd blocked his number. He grabbed his car keys and rushed out of the office. 20 minutes later, his car stopped outside the villa. He practically ran inside. The house was just as empty as it had been a week earlier. He raced upstairs and opened the bedroom door. Her clothes were still there. Her jewelry was there. Everything he'd given her remained, but her ID was gone. Her passport was gone too. She'd taken only what proved her identity. She wanted nothing else. Tingchen stood frozen, cold sweat forming in his palms. He searched the room, looking for any clue at all. Then suddenly, he found several things in the bottom drawer of the nightstand. A diary and a medical certificate showing a pregnancy loss. It was dated 1 week earlier. Tingchen's hand shook violently around the paper. The baby was gone. She had gone to the hospital alone. And where had he been? He'd been worried Yue's ex-husband might cause trouble, so he'd stayed with Yue. He picked up the diary and turned the pages one by one. It recorded every detail of the past 5 years. Her waiting, her disappointment, her heartbreak. Every page showed how carefully she'd tried to please him and how often she'd been crushed. He reached the final page. There was only one line. I've decided to leave. Lu Tingchen, I don't want you anymore. The diary slipped from his hand. Tingchen crouched there and covered his face with both hands. He remembered the divorce agreement. It had only been a test he'd set up. For 5 years, she'd been gentle, never arguing, never making scenes. He couldn't tell whether she loved him or merely acted like a wife. So when Yue brought out the divorce papers, he signed in public. Only he knew the document he'd signed was a fake he'd prepared beforehand. The format was identical, but the contents were completely different. He had never touched the real divorce agreement. He wanted to see how she'd react if she thought he truly wanted a divorce. What would she do? Would she cry, make a scene? Would she beg him? Instead, she did nothing. She only looked at him calmly, then turned and left. Later, she fell into the water and was hospitalized. The doctor told him she was pregnant. They'd almost lost the baby. He'd frozen on the spot. Standing outside her room, he looked at her unconscious in the hospital bed. Fear flooded through him. What if the baby had really been lost? What if something had happened to her? He couldn't bear to think further. From that moment, he decided to stop testing her. He wanted to build a real life with her, so he proposed holding another wedding. He wanted to give her a grand ceremony and make up for those 5 years. He thought everything would finally get better. He never expected Yue to cause that scene at the wedding, and he never imagined Nian Qing would simply leave. Tingchen stared at the diary in his hands. His eyes reddened. She had given up on him long ago. Her true answer had been to leave, and his arrogant little test was only the final push that broke her. He stood up and ordered the butler to check her travel records. Use every channel we have. I want to know where she went. The butler left to carry out the order. Mrs. Lu looked at her son's dark expression and asked what had happened. Tingchen closed his eyes. His voice was hoarse. Mom! The baby is gone. He didn't explain further. His eyes darkened. I drove her away. He turned toward the floor-to-ceiling window and stared into the night. His mind was full of Nian Qing. The way she smiled. The way she waited for him. The way she looked disappointed and the finality in her back as she walked away. He closed his eyes. For 5 years he had failed her. He'd looked down from above and judged her. Tested her, yet never truly seen her. Now she'd left, carrying all those wounds with her. Tingchen slowly clenched his hand. Did she really think she could escape him like this? Impossible, not in this lifetime. He would find her, bring her back, and spend the rest of his life making up for everything he'd done. He turned toward the door. His voice was low and firm. Shen Nianking? No matter where you run, I'll find you. You're my wife. You always will be. 3 days later, across the ocean, the sun was shining. Nianking opened her apartment door. Her steps paused when she saw the man below the stairs. Tingchen leaned against a car. His eyes were bloodshot. When he saw her, he straightened. You've been upset long enough. Isn't it time to come home? Grandpa keeps asking about you. Nianking looked at him. There was no emotion in her eyes. Mr. Lu, we're divorced. Tingchen gave a faint smile. Divorced? I never signed the real papers. So how are we divorced? Nianking looked at him calmly. You signed them in front of everyone. I even left the agreement in the nightstand. Don't tell me you've forgotten, Mr. Lu. Tingchen was silent for a moment. He slowly stepped closer. That agreement was fake. Nianking froze. Tingchen stopped in front of her. Looking down at her, he said, the one I signed was a fake I prepared beforehand. Same format. Different contents. I never touched the real divorce agreement. Nianking stood stunned. Tingchen's voice softened. Regret showed in his eyes. 5 years. You never argued with me. You never made a scene. I couldn't tell whether you truly cared or were just fulfilling your role as my wife, so I tested you. He paused. Regret flashed in his eyes. Then you fell into the water and ended up in the hospital. The doctor said we almost lost the baby. I was terrified. I decided I was done testing you. I wanted to build a real life with you. The second wedding was meant to make things right. I never expected it to end like this. Nianking laughed. It was faint but painfully sarcastic. What didn't you expect? That I'd leave? She raised her head and looked him straight in the eye. Lu Tingchen, it's been 5 years. You stood above me and kept testing me, judging me, but never once tried to truly see me. Her voice was calm, but every word landed hard. You wanted to see my true feelings. Now you've seen them. My true choice is leaving you. With that, Nianking turned to leave. Tingchen grabbed her wrist. Nianking! I know I was wrong. Give me one chance. Nianking looked down at his hand around her wrist, pulled free and said, Mr. Lu, weren't 5 years of chances enough? Her voice was calm, with no emotion left in it. She said she was tired. Then she walked into the apartment without looking back. The door closed. Tingchen stood outside staring at it. He didn't move for a long time. He knew she wouldn't forgive him easily, but he wasn't giving up. The next morning, Nianking stepped out and saw the apartment next door open. She glanced over instinctively. Tingchen stood in the doorway, holding a cup of coffee. When he saw her, he smiled slightly. Morning. Nianking stopped and frowned. What are you doing here? I moved. Needed a change of scenery. Looks like we're neighbors now. Nianking took a deep breath. She ignored him and headed downstairs. Tingchen wasn't bothered. He casually followed behind her. When Nianking reached the street, she found a black Bentley parked beside her own car. Tingchen walked over and opened the passenger door. Get in. I'll drive you. Nianking refused. She walked around him and opened her own car. Tingchen didn't force it. He only said he'd follow her. Nianking couldn't be bothered arguing. She started her car and left. In the rearview mirror, the black Bentley really did follow. Nianking arrived at her newly opened flower shop. Tingchen parked across the street. When she finished work, his car was still there. When she went shopping, he waited outside the supermarket. When she got back home, she found a bag outside her door. Inside were her favorite fruit and desserts, plus a note. I know you don't want to see me. I left these outside. Remember to eat. Nianking stared at the note for a long time. In the end, she took the bag inside. In the days that followed, Tingchen appeared in her life every single day. Whenever she left in the morning, he'd be waiting outside the neighboring door. Sometimes he held coffee, sometimes breakfast. If she refused it, he'd leave it at her door. At night, when she returned, there was always another bag waiting. Sometimes fruit, sometimes books she liked, sometimes flowers. She never accepted them in front of him, but always brought them inside after he left. Tingchen knew she was slowly softening, but he didn't rush her. He had plenty of patience. One evening, Nianking worked late. When she left, it was pouring outside. She had no umbrella and was debating whether to run for it when an umbrella suddenly appeared over her head. She looked up. Tingchen was standing beside her. He said he'd been waiting a long time. Nianking pressed her lips together. You didn't need to wait. Tingchen said, I wanted to. Then he naturally put an arm around her shoulders and guided her toward the car. Nianking tried to pull away, but the rein was too heavy. For now, she gave in. She got into the car. Tingchen handed her a hot milk tea. Just bought it. It's still warm. Nianking didn't take it. Your stomach is sensitive. Drink something warm. After a moment, she finally accepted it. Tingchen watched her sip the milk tea. A faint smile touched his lips. The car drove slowly toward the apartment. When they arrived, Nianking was about to get out, when Tingchen stopped her. Good night. Nian King paused but said nothing. She got out and went inside, but Tingchen noticed. Her steps were a little slower than usual. He knew she was wavering. A few more days passed. Then a new customer came into Nian King's flower shop. His name was Gu Yanzhou, young and successful, polished and gentle. A friend had recommended her. He wanted a custom floral collection as a gift for his mother. From their very first meeting, Gu Yanzhou showed obvious interest in Shen King. While choosing flowers, his gaze kept drifting toward her. Before leaving, he invited Nian King to dinner. She wanted to refuse, but he said it was to thank her for the design work, so she agreed. After dinner, Gu Yanzhou insisted on driving her home. She couldn't talk him out of it, so she got in his car. The car stopped outside her apartment. Gu Yanzhou got out and opened her door like a gentleman. Ms. Shen, I had a wonderful evening. I hope we can have dinner again sometime. Nian King smiled politely. You're too kind, Mr. Gu. Just then, a tall figure approached from the side. Tingchen wore a black trench coat and carried an umbrella. He walked up beside Nian King and naturally put an arm around her waist. I've been waiting for you. Nian King stiffened. Gu Yanzhou frowned at the man who'd suddenly appeared. And you are? Lu Tingchen gave him a cool glance. A faint, unreadable smile touched his lips. I'm her husband. Gu Yanzhou's expression shifted. Husband? I thought Miss Shen was single. Tingchen looked down at Nian King. A dangerous edge entered his eyes. You told him you were single? Nian King pressed her lips together and said nothing. Tingchen looked back at Gu Yanzhou. His tone was calm but left no room for argument. Mr. Gu, thanks for bringing my wife home. You won't need to trouble yourself next time. She has me. Gu Yanzhou looked at Tingchen's arm, around Nian King, then at her expression. She didn't contradict him. Gu Yanzhou understood enough. His smile faded. I see. My apologies for overstepping. See you another time, Ms. Shen. He got in his car and left. Nian King watched his car disappear around the corner before pulling away from Tingchen. What was that about? Tingchen replied, protecting my marriage. Who asked you to interfere? Tingchen looked at her, completely serious. You're my wife. Another man drove you home. Of course I'm going to care. His stare made Nian King uncomfortable. She looked away. We're already divorced. I told you the agreement was fake. You're still my wife. Nian King didn't want to argue and headed inside. Tingchen followed behind her. If you have another business dinner, tell me. I'll go with you. I don't need you to. Then I'll wait downstairs every day. Nian King stopped. She turned back to him. What exactly do you want? Tingchen stopped too. He looked at her seriously. I want you back by my side. Nian King was quiet for a long time. Impossible. She hurried upstairs and shut the door. Tingchen stood downstairs, watching the light come on in her room. A smile touched his lips. Impossible? He'd see about that. Another week passed. That afternoon, Nian King was trimming stems in the flower shop. Tingchen stood nearby, clumsily helping wrap bouquets. Nian King watched him turn the ribbon into a tangled mess and couldn't help sighing. Stop making more work for me. Tingchen refused to let go. I want to learn. Nian King shook her head helplessly. Just as she was about to teach him, the shop door opened. The bell above it chimed. They both looked up. Zhang Yue stood in the doorway. Her eyes locked on Tingchen. They immediately filled with tears. Tingchen, I finally found you. Tingchen's face instantly darkened. He stepped in front of Nian King. What are you doing here? Yue walked into the shop. Tears slid down her cheeks. Tingchen, I came to apologize. What I did at the wedding was wrong. I shouldn't have done it. Her voice trembled. She looked fragile and pitiful. I've spent all this time reflecting. I know I hurt you. I just want you to forgive me. Tingchen stared coldly at her. Do you even understand what you did? His voice was quiet but ice cold. Zhang Yue, you ruined my wedding. You drove my wife away. And I lost my child. Yue went pale, then quickly regained her composure. She raised her head. A faint trace of satisfaction flashed in her eyes. The baby? Tingchen, that baby was already gone. Tingchen's pupils tightened. Nian King stood nearby, her expression changing too. Seeing Tingchen's shock, Yue continued. She came to me herself. She said she wanted to leave and asked me to get you out of the way. Remember that night? I called and said my ex-husband was harassing me. That was fake. It was just to lure you away. Tingchen slowly clenched his fist. His knuckles turned white. Yue's voice grew increasingly unsteady. You stayed with me for a whole week. During that time, she secretly went to the hospital and ended the pregnancy. She signed the consent forms alone and went into the procedure alone. She chose not to keep that baby. Tingchen's chest rose and fell sharply. Complicated emotions surged through his eyes. He turned toward Nian King. She lowered her eyes and said nothing. Seeing an opening, Yue stepped closer. She reached for Tingchen's arm. Her tone softened. Tingchen, see, she doesn't care about you. She didn't even want your child. I'm the only one who truly loves you. We grew up together. I've waited for you all these years. Give me a chance, please. Tingchen flung her hand away. His eyes were full of disgust. Zhang Yue, what fantasy are you living in? Yue froze. The fragile act vanished from her face. Tingchen, I truly love you. The bride swap was her idea in the first place. She didn't want to marry you. She begged me to take her place. I only agreed because I loved you so much. Tingchen cut her off coldly. I don't care whose idea it was. Nian King is the only woman in my heart. From now on, I never want to see you again. Stay away from me and Nian King. Yue's face twisted. She stared at Tingchen in disbelief. Impossible, you never even used to look at her. She must have manipulated you. Yes, it has to be her. Yue grew more agitated. Her eyes fixed on Nian King, filled with resentment. This is all your fault. If it weren't for you, Tingchen would have been mine already. What right do you have? To take him from me? Nian King frowned. I haven't taken anyone from you. But Yue seemed unable to hear her. She muttered. Right, if you disappear, Tingchen will come back to me. She suddenly pulled a small knife from her bag. She rushed toward Nian King. Nian King's eyes widened. She instinctively backed away, but the flower shop was cramped. A flower rack blocked her escape. Just as Yue reached her, Tingchen lunged forward. He put himself between them. The blade struck him in the back. Blood quickly spread across his white shirt. Tingchen groaned, his body swaying. Nian King stared at him in horror, completely frozen. She called his name with a trembling voice. Tingchen turned around. Using the last of his strength, he kept her behind him. His face was pale. A trace of blood touched his lips, but he still forced a faint smile. I'm okay. Then his strength gave out. He collapsed into Nian King's arms. She held him, shaking all over. Wake up! Please don't scare me! Her voice broke with tears. People outside the shop heard the commotion and called the police, and an ambulance. Yue stood frozen as the knife slipped from her hand. She stared blankly at Tingchen, covered in blood. The ambulance arrived quickly. Tingchen was placed on a stretcher and rushed to the hospital. Nian King climbed into the ambulance and held his hand tightly. His hand was cold. His face kept growing paler. Nian King couldn't stop crying. You can't die, do you hear me? Tingchen's eyelids moved. He struggled to open his eyes. He looked at Nian King. His lips moved slightly, and don't cry. Nian King cried even harder. Stop talking, save your strength. Tingchen smiled faintly, then closed his eyes again. At the hospital, Tingchen was rushed into emergency surgery. Nian King stood outside. She hadn't even had time to clean the blood off herself. She leaned against the wall, trembling. Her mind kept replaying Tingchen, stepping in front of her. He hadn't hesitated for a second. He used his own body to shield her. In that moment, something hit her heart with full force. She'd thought she had completely let go of this man. She thought she could leave without looking back, but seeing him collapse like that, she realized she couldn't feel nothing. Fear crashed over her so hard it nearly swallowed her whole. The emergency room light stayed on for 3 hours. Nian King stood outside the entire time, her legs numb, too afraid to leave. Finally, the door opened. A doctor stepped out and removed his mask. Family of the patient? Nian King hurried over. How is Lu Tingchen? The doctor looked at her. The wound was deep. It nearly reached his heart. Fortunately, treatment came in time. He's stable for now, but we still need to monitor him. The weight finally lifted from Nian King's chest. Her knees went weak, and she nearly fell. The doctor steadied her. You should get some rest, too. He needs 1 night in the ICU for observation. Nian King shook her head. She declined the doctor's suggestion. Seeing how exhausted she looked, the doctor sighed and stopped trying to persuade her. Tingchen was moved into the ICU. Nian King stood outside the glass. She watched him lying in the bed. His face was pale. Tubes surrounded him. The ventilator rose and fell, making a faint mechanical sound. Nian King's tears started again. She remembered everything from these past years. His coldness and neglect, but also his recent patience and devotion, and how he'd stepped in front of her without hesitation. Suddenly, she realized she couldn't bear the thought of losing him. 5 years of marriage. She thought her feelings had died, but she'd only buried them so deeply that even she believed they were gone. Nian King slowly crouched beside the glass. She buried her face in her knees and cried silently. The next day, Tingchen woke up. He opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Nian King beside the bed. She had fallen asleep against the mattress. Her eyes were swollen, and tear marks remained on her face. Tingchen looked at her, his expression softening. He tried to lift his hand and touch her face, but the pain made him suck in a breath. The movement woke Nian King. She raised her head quickly. When she saw he was awake, her eyes turned red again. Does it hurt? Tingchen looked at her swollen eyes. His voice was hoarse. Were you crying? Nian King turned her face away, not wanting him to see her like this. No, Tingchen chuckled. Your eyes are swollen and you're still saying no? Nian King pressed her lips together. She said nothing. Tingchen looked at her. Seriously, he said, Nian King, thank you for staying with me. Her heart trembled slightly. After a long silence, she spoke. Why did you get in front of that knife? Tingchen looked at her, his eyes gentle. Because you're my wife. Protecting you is what I'm supposed to do. Tears welled in Nian King's eyes again. Do you know you almost died? Tingchen reached out and gently wiped away her tears. Didn't die. Guess I get to keep annoying you. Nian King laughed despite herself. At a time like this? You're still joking? Tingchen took her hand. He looked at her seriously. Nian King, I know I've failed you all these years. I hurt you and disappointed you, but I truly want to make it right. He paused. His voice grew low. Can you give me one chance? Nian King looked into his sincere eyes. The walls around her heart began to crumble. She thought about everything he'd done lately. The morning coffee and breakfast, the fruit and desserts waiting at night, the umbrella in the rain, the milk tea after late work, and the way he'd shielded her from the attack. She knew he was truly trying, and she knew she had never completely stopped loving him. Nian King stayed silent for a long time. Finally, she softly called his name. Tingchen answered. If you hurt me one more time, I will never forgive you. Tingchen froze, then joy flashed across his face. Nian King looked away, her ears turning slightly red. I'll give you one more chance. Only one. Tingchen tightened his grip on her hand. He could barely contain his excitement. Okay, one chance is enough. I won't let you down again. Nian King looked at his pale face and frowned with concern. Stop talking for now. Get some rest. But Tingchen refused to let go of her hand. He softly called her name. Nian King answered. Tingchen said, I love you. Nian King's heart skipped. 5 years. It was the first time he'd ever said those words to her. Her eyes filled again, but this time it wasn't from sadness. She gently squeezed his hand. In a soft voice, she said, I know. Tingchen looked at her. A warm smile curved his lips. He knew she'd forgiven him. In the days that followed, Tingchen stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks. Nian King came to see him every day. She temporarily left the flower shop to her staff. She fed him and helped care for him, and stayed to talk with him. Sometimes she brought fresh flowers from the shop and placed them by the hospital window. Surrounded by flowers, Tingchen felt completely content. On the day he was discharged, Tingchen took Nian King's hand. Nian King, let's go home. Nian King looked at him and nodded gently. Sunlight fell across them. Tingchen walked out of the hospital holding Nian King's hand. He knew he would never let her slip away again. For the rest of his life, he'd use all the love he had to make up for those 5 painful years. Nian King looked at the man beside her, and a faint smile touched her lips. This time she was willing to trust him again, because she finally realized he'd always had a place in her heart, and that place had never truly disappeared.